Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order. This meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda, but I do have a few things I want to do. First and foremost, I'd like us to have a moment of silence for the boat FV Lily Jean that went down off Gloucester, and for the gunner Sebastian Halmagian from Hamilton, Ontario. So we have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Just like to say a few words. It's kind of ironic that about a week ago I received a package in the mail from the city of Gloucester in the office of the mayor. It says, "Mayor Myra, please accept this flag from the people of Gloucester. I am so proud to have been part of strengthening the special relationship that exists between our two communities. I wish you all the best in 2026, Mayor Greg Verrett." So we have put the Gloucester flag up on our poles at half mast today. So if you're wondering why the flag is up and why it's at half mast, that's why Captain Gus and Filippo has been here many a times. He's very involved in their Dory Association, so this hits very close to home. So again, our condolences go out to everybody in Gloucester and to the family of Gunner Sebastian Halmagian. So again, thank you very much. So approval of the agenda. The council approved the agenda for January 26. I did. Yep. Okay. The council approved the agenda for January 26, 2026 special council meeting as presented. Moved by Councillor Strong, seconded by Councillor Fullerton. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Great. Approval of the minutes. Recommendation that council approve the minutes from the January 12th, 2026 special council meeting as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Babineau, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Now is the time for public input. We had nobody sign up. We have nobody online sign up. Okay, so I will just throw it out there. If anybody wants to get up and say anything, they can. Here we'll move on then. Number 7 is new business. 7.1 information report, recreation master plan.
Thank you, Worship. So Council, at the last budget meeting that we had at the beginning of January, you were seeking further information as to what is a recreation master plan. So provided to you is a lengthy report explaining the differentiation as it looks at recreation trends, gathering public input, planning and development programs, funding, and then developing improvement and implementation guides. Again, looks at needs assessments, visioning and goals, community engagement, and strategic direction for the department. So within that scope, this is what would be portioned out as along with long-term visioning and infrastructure strategies. And what's it trying to address? Your parks, your green spaces, recreation centers, trails, marinas, and other amenities deemed important by your community. This also looks at programs, so activities, events, services, and that service diverse age groups and demographics, as well as it helps create policies that align with the broader community goals, supports health, economic development, community development, tourism, and quality of life for residents. So Council, I'll put it back to you if you have any questions or would like further input, but 3 recreation master plans were provided as examples. So East Hants, Yarmouth, and the town of Quispamsis, but also I can also provide you the town of St. Andrews now that they've released theirs. So if there's others you would like to see or have more information or would like further information on, now's the time to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Paul? Councilor Babineau?
Yes, through the chair. Under the section that talks about the financial impact, it's saying that we're recommending $70,000 for this year's budget for this master plan, but also that we'll be applying for grants to help offset this cost. And then it says, as noted in the capital budget, this project would not move ahead without additional grant funding for 26-27. So does that mean we're assuming that this will cost more than the $70,000?
Through you, Chair, the goal is to get funding from the province for a total of $70,000. So we wouldn't exceed that line unless there's other mechanisms that council wants to look at, if it's a regional partnership or want to talk on something on a larger scale. But understanding what our recreational needs are, based on what I've seen from other municipalities, around 70,000 is a pretty reasonable request for consultants as it comes to recreation master plans. And we would hope that we could get 50% from the province, which is pretty viable based on what we've seen for grant funding and availability out there.
So just to follow up, if we didn't get at least 50%, then we wouldn't move forward with it in this year's budget?
Through you, Chair, within the budget, it actually stipulates that we would want to have grant funding, whether that's a 50% or a threshold that council is willing to settle, be happy with based on what we're able to achieve. It would come back to the chair here and to council to decide if you want to proceed or not with the project.
So does that mean we're budgeting 70,000, but we'd love to only have 35,000 if we get the funding?
Through your chair, that's correct. Our goal is always to try to achieve, if we can achieve 50% funding from the province, which is, their range can be anywhere from 30 to 66%, depending on what the funding and the grant is being offered. But our goal is always to try to offset these projects with grant funding so that it doesn't cost the town as much when we're looking to develop these plans.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Fullerton.
Not questions, just a comment that I did look really closely at the comparable plan for the town of Yarmouth, and there's a ton of information in there. That's a pretty comprehensive study, so that it's clear to me now the financial implication of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks to our CAO very much for the report. I think it is helpful. I'm still not convinced that at this point in our lifespan as a council that this is an appropriate spend. However, looking for grant funding is always helpful, but it's not just a matter of the funding, it's a matter of the timing. And with us still in the midst of formulating our own take on a strategic plan, and with some, ripe for the picking plans that could be moved ahead in the budget for recreation upgrades to the facilities or the offerings, the assets that we already have. I certainly would advocate for using the funds to move ahead with projects that are in need of attention, as opposed to more of the blue skying and long-term planning for that particular area of town operations. And I think it also has, my view is kind of swayed somewhat by recent conversations with our municipal neighbors. And recreation is one of those, well, it's one of a variety of services that it's hard to sometimes tell where one municipality's responsibilities stop and another one start, if you're a member of the public, and looking at it more holistically, and how we can work collaboratively with our municipal neighbors, I think might be a first step prior to engaging or undertaking a master plan. And looking at some of the other plans, like the Yarmouth one, for example, they talk extensively about them being a hub for their broader municipalities, the District of Yarmouth and the District of Argyll as well. And likewise, we serve that for a large part of our municipality. And we're kind of in preliminary discussions with them as to how we shift the perspective, our municipal neighbors, and looking more broadly at the recreation assets that serve their population as well as ours. So I just think it's a little premature to undertake this at this point in time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Doffman?
So I have a little bit of a different take on it than our deputy mayor. Trying to read my writing here. We have floundered a little bit for the last few years in our recreation department, and I personally would like to hear some input from the public on what they see where we could go with our recreation department, keeping in mind, we do have Modal surrounding us, but I also feel that we're missing out on a lot of opportunities, a lot of good things. And I go back to active transportation. When I was looking at what does a recreation master plan address? The infrastructure, parks, green spaces. I look at our parks and our gardens, for instance. CAO and I have had preliminary talks with some ideas that I have there. But like I said, I would like to get some feedback. And I saw a quote today that kind of bothered me. And it was a quote in reference to not recreation, but to the town as a whole. And it said, this person's take on the community has lost its heart and soul. Well, I don't think we've lost our heart and soul. I think we're wandering a bit and a little floundering in many areas. But I think if we engage with the town, some ideas about recreation, there's lots of new things out there. And while I do agree, our buildings and things do need some upgrading, but I'd like to know what direction the townspeople feel, and even my colleagues around the table. Thanks.
Anybody else? I just have, I guess, a few comments then. Mine's more on the lines with the deputy mayor after having a meeting, I guess, a week ago or so with our colleagues in Modal. They seem quite interested in sitting down and talking about a variety of things. So again, for us to do a recreation master plan for whatever it costs, when 60 to 70% of the people that use the facility actually don't live in town, I think we should have Modal possibly sit down at the table with Modal, discuss this, and maybe do more of a regional type of a plan, because what's good for us that can actually walk to the community center or the rink might not be good for people living in Blue Rocks, for example. So there might be some ideas they come forward with. And in saying that, also, if we would need almost $300,000, that I think is an urgent need that we have to do to make sure the arena doesn't not continue to function another season. That's why I could see deferring this until we sit down with our neighbors and trying to come up with more of a regional approach to this study, and then seeing where we go from there. Because sooner, you can't get the money from everywhere, and we have to do the arena upgrade, and we are asking our partners to help us there. We are looking to apply for grant funding again, but there's never any guarantees. So a $270,000 reno at the arena is quite a big expense for a town our size. So that's where I'm leaning at this point. I have nothing against the recreation master plan. I think it would be great to tell us where we want to go, where we're hit it, and some new things. But again, I think this has been on the agenda, quite honestly, or on the budget for this is the third year, I think it's been deferred from. And every time something seems to come up. Well, I think the big thing this time is let's get our partners to the table and see what we all feel, because I think recreation is one of those things that, you know, we should be sharing a bit of with our neighbors, since 60 to 70% of the people that use the facilities actually live outside the community. And they realize that we're the hub, us and Bridgewater, and the towns would be the hub with the recreation facilities. So that's where I sit on the recreation master plan at this point.
So through you, council, I would recommend when we get to the capital budgets, you can have a further discussion. And if you wish to change, modify, or amend the budget, it would need a motion of council to modify that section. And when we get to there, we can discuss that.
Okay, thank you. So 7.2, information report, town general capital and operating reserves.
So council, again, this came up within our previous discussions as information discussion regarding a potential support for your upcoming capital projects. I would recommend, in speaking with staff, that as we look at reserves and as we look at the impacts within that any reserve topics on like a 10 cent or anything like that be deferred to the operational expense discussions, due to the fact that you'll have more information on our operational costs, where we're getting taxation and where we're heading as a town for discussion. But that would be my recommendation at this point, Your Worship.
Okay, is there any questions on that part? It's basically a recommendation to move this forward to our operating budget conversations in March. I noticed a very interesting article over the weekend about HRM that they did a poll, and 70% of the population that actually responded to the poll feel that HRM Council isn't listening or aren't reading the issue right now. So I certainly don't. I hope that we hear people. I hope people come and present. I mean, we can't do an operating budget and not change anything, or if nobody comes with ideas, right? That's the whole idea of having public information sessions at budget time. And we have a budgeted well over $3 million capital budget here that we're looking at passing tonight. And we have 3 citizens sitting in the stand. So I don't know how many is, but nobody wrote in to talk. So again, it's a little disappointing that this is, between this and the operating budget, it's the 2 most important documents that we're going to pass over the next 12 months. And to see such little input or care is a little sad, to be honest with you. And I'm just speaking truthfully. I mean, we go to move a stop sign and we fill this room, and now we're going to spend almost $4 million on capital, and no one seems to worry. So again, we should really look at the operating budget when it comes out to the public and come here with some suggestions, because we do listen. We have changed some things when people make presentations. So, you know, come and listen, because if you don't come and speak, then when it passes in April or May sometime, it's no sense complaining at that point. Yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents rave for the night. Now I'll move on to 7.3, the draft water utility capital budget.
Good evening, everyone. In your package, there is a draft water capital budget paper. At the January 12th special council budget meeting, staff presented the 26-27 draft utility capital budget. The total project costs for the 26-27 water utility capital budget are $777,000, with $191,000 funded from the depreciation reserve and $586,000 funded from the future capital reserve. There was opportunity for public input at all the special budget council meetings and via written submissions. Council did not make any suggested revisions for the 2026-27 draft water capital utility budget. There is a motion in your package for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Kathleen? Deputy Mayor?
think actually might be a question that Tyson might be better placed to answer. It's with regard to the very big project for this utility, which is the transmission main renewal, and the $100,000 that is budgeted as an expenditure for this fiscal year upcoming. And I'm just looking for a little more on what that amount will cover. I know it's shown as a phased project. And so is this for design work specifically? I'm not sure if it detailed that in the explanation. Thanks.
So through the chair, you're correct. This is a massive project. The full scope is essentially replacing the transmission line all the way from the plant on Northwest Road to the tank on Garden Lots. So running all through Newtown, around the Front Harbour Trail, Blue Nose Drive, and then up Pelham and up Hospital Road. So the first year there initially is to get started. Thought is to focus on Northwest Road. Getting that section done would provide benefits to our distribution system, would help improve fire flows and items like that. It would help us get water to town quicker. So that's what we're thinking in terms of the starting point, and then many years of phase work unless we could get support. And that's one of those ones we have looped in red where we're looking for that external support.
So you mentioned that this is for the Northwest Road section. So that's outside of our jurisdiction? So is there issues with doing that, with replacing the line on what would not be our property, I'm guessing? Or perhaps I'm misunderstanding.
So through the chair, you're correct, and it is outside of town limits, and it would be through Public Works Nova Scotia road space. So we would need a permit and their permission. We'd want them involved in the process, and then reinstatements of the roadway or the highway would be to their specifications. So that would be something the contractor who's awarded the work would have to get the permits from Public Works Nova Scotia and perform the work to their standards. But that would be all outlined in our documents.
Okay, thank you. So you might understand this 100,000 sort of for us to have like a plans like we do with the electric utility. So when we know what we're going to do, we know what it's going to cost us down the road. And if we're going to the feds or any other level of government for funding, we'll have that document in our hands like we've done for the electric utility.
Through you, Chair, that's correct. Even similar to like Maple Avenue, when you're seeing all these studies, it's to allow us to pre-plan and know what needs to be done. And again, to apply that to grants and other funding agencies so that we can hopefully attain funding to help offset the cost of the projects.
So basically to be shovel ready, that seems to be the big word right now. So good. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? There is a motion in front of us that council approve the 2026-27 water utility capital budget as presented, totaling $777,000. A lot of sevens there. Is someone prepared to move that? Moved by Councillor Babineau. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daphne. Any further discussion or question on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carry unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to 7.4, draft capital budget, town general. Kathleen?
At the January 12th special budget meeting, council held its first review of the draft 2026-27 town general capital budget and a copy of the summary presentation provided by staff. Council asked staff to consider if one vehicle could be shared between the bylaw and recreation staff. Staff have reviewed and determined that this would not be a viable option for departments, as it would leave both departments without the adequate resources. Staff have reduced the budgets for each of these vehicles by $10,000 each and will try to resource these vehicles within the lower limits. The electric utility will pay the town for a daily rental rate whenever the bylaw vehicle is used for electric utility operations. Council also asked for more information regarding the recreation master plan, and our CAO has provided that this evening. There was opportunity for public input at the special budget council meeting and via written submissions. So before you, there is a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions to staff from council or comments? Councillor Daphne?
Tyson, do you want to explain exactly what a survey rover is and does?
Yes, through the chair, I can. That's in the 27-28 budget, but Survey Rover is planned so that it would allow a public works crew to take field shots with a survey rod using GPS, so that when work's done in the field, we can have that permanent digital record. At the moment, a lot of our records are scale drawings that are still in good shape, but they're probably 30 years old. And if anything happened to those documents, it wouldn't be good for any of us. So it would allow us to shoot the work as we're completing it. It's obviously important when you're burying work like services and mainline pipe, but it would allow us to accumulate digital records of all our infrastructure as well, shooting curb stops that are in those books, sidewalks, road widths, things like that. So it would be things that we could pick away at that would set us up for success in the future.
I had a pretty good idea, but I thought maybe somebody out in the online world may not know. I think that's it for me.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have lots of questions. So they're dotted throughout the document. So I will try to work through them in a reasonable manner. Pelham Street, the public, I think I'm on the right page. Yes, page 1. Under sidewalk renewal, we mentioned Pelham Street, Shipyard Hill to town limits. And I understand that this is a sidewalk renewal project, but I'm interested to know if there's any capacity or opportunity with a project like that to understand if there's any capacity to accommodate bikes. I know that's a very popular biking route to Blue Rocks, and there's a curb now on the sidewalk that's challenging when you're biking with the traffic. There's not a lot of space, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just wondering if that's something that could possibly be looked into through this project.
Through the chair, I'm just trying to understand, are we talking about adding a bike lane or something like that?
I don't know how wide the road is, if there's any capacity for a bike lane, but I know that I think I get the sense from riding on it that the road currently is paved just to the minimum of requirements for two-way traffic. And so if you're trying to stay off the sidewalk and on the road with traffic, the curb actually presents a bit of a problem or an obstacle to be avoided. So I'm just throwing out there the thought that it would be wonderful if we could somehow, through the design of the, either moving the sidewalk over a little bit or to make more room on the already existing road, or I really don't know. I'm just wondering if it could be thought about.
So through the chair, the design for this sidewalk renewal has already been initiated because this was the sidewalk that replaced the potential Star Street sidewalk that was considered no longer required. So that hasn't been that was the design's at 50% complete now for the sidewalk, and unfortunately the bike aspect wasn't included in that scope and hasn't to date. So I'm not sure if it could be just knowing we're trying to maintain the width for accessibility reasons there. The curb, I understand it's an obstacle for cycling, but it does add safety for pedestrians having curbs there. Like it's a delineation or an obstacle for drivers, I guess, that pushes them towards the center line. So we would need to adjust the scope that's underway now if that was something that we needed or wanted to include.
So I probably missed the window on that. So that's fine. I guess just for clarification, then it looks like we'll be putting the sidewalk just as it is now. Is that the plan, that it will basically replace what is currently existing? Upgrading, of course.
Through the chair, the issue with the existing sidewalk is mainly the condition of it. It's asphalt and it's rough condition, and that curb is also in relatively poor condition. I think it's fair to say. So it is replacing. We need that minimum width to comply with the accessibility. Private property tends to be close to the back of the existing. So we are a bit confined there in terms of adding to the roadway and then maintaining or getting the width that we're looking for the sidewalk.
If you have more, keep going. Yep.
Also with the Victoria Road sidewalk green to 180 Victoria. I know that the initial part is planning what we're looking for this current budget year, or 50,000, I assume is that covers, because wouldn't be a lot to do with that. And I'm just wondering about, is there any consideration that needs to be given, and I'm sure you would have if it does, with respect to the Tannery Road culvert project and impact one on the other? With that, it comes over, presumably that far to meet up with Tannery Road at some point. And would the sidewalk potentially need to be raised or anything differently done, because we're looking at the Tannery Road improvement as well?
So through the chair, are you correct? In terms of that Victoria Road sidewalk, this year is planned for a design for again, that was broken up into phases. So green up to around Hall, and then Hall to the crossing at the hardware store, which is the 180 Victoria. In terms of the Tannery Road culvert, that's something Again, that's identified for the funding support that we need. We're going through, once the project, assuming that Tannery Road project is approved by council, staff are looking at funding opportunities that are contingent on the project being carried by council. So we do have the preliminary work that we did on the condition assessment and a sort of a higher level cost assessment, but there's a funding opportunity that we've been talking to through our CCC group. It's called the CHRIS funding, where we take a project and they have a consultant team that, I understand, for free will look at our concept and make recommendations to us and sort of point us in the right direction. They won't give us the detailed design, but at least it will give us confirmation that we're on the right track. My gut is that we need to start at the Tanner, sort of the harbour end, and work our way back rather than at the Victoria Road end. So it's possible that there would be some of the work that's affected, provided we get the funding that we need for Tannery Road. Then we could look at a contingency for the area that we expect to be affected, sort of a temporary setup. I think at that crossing though, Victoria, that area, it's hard to see a different concept other than a piped solution to get across Victoria Road. Maybe there's some other options past that, but all the road crossings, it's not impossible to have a different solution, but it wouldn't be it'd be very costly to get away from that.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I think the Tannery Road project, getting that finally started is really important and does impact so many things. Our recreation facilities being a significant one as well. So certainly supportive of getting that work initiated for sure. Question, this would be for finance more so, and that is all of the capital projects that are under the heading of wastewater utility. And just with respect to how we as a community fund these projects. And you notice that there's sewer reserves are not insignificant contributors to a number of these projects. And just to clarify that on our tax bills, we have a sewer and, we're charged separately for sewer infrastructure. Does that fee that our citizens pay, is that all inclusive in this? Is there any sort of a tax rate supplementing of the sewer operations and capital projects?
So when we started with the wastewater treatment plant project, I believe about 5 years ago, we did a modeling with Tyson and his group, and we developed a cost of what we perceived that would cost us in the future. And through that, we took all the operational costs as well as what we felt that the debt financing would be at that point in time, and applied that to the different assessment rates. And that is what is paid for through your actual tax bills, so that we're always building a reserve. So when there are sewer issues, such as Tannery Road, such as some of the other larger ones that we deal with, we have money set aside. So and when we get a shovel-ready project, then we would have like our own portion of money already there that we would be able to use to offset perhaps a borrowing at a higher rate. So yes, we put quite a bit of thought into that process to ensure that we were building a a financial means to ensure that we could actually get the new wastewater treatment plant put in place.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anyone? Right, do you have more, Rachel?
One more.
Okay, go ahead.
So equipment is a pretty big ask this year, and I know that they've been held over, some of them. So, but it's you know, the trackless and the salt truck are big ticket items for our capital budget, and they are all financed through debt financing, and which is pretty significant. So I'm just wondering, you know, at the fire department, they do a long-term plan for equipment replacements, and I didn't know if in our sort of asset management planning, if there was a system in place at this point for and maybe this is what we're looking for with increasing our capital reserves, but for replacement of these, you know, big ticket items like a salt truck and a trackless.
So through the chair, I think we're talking about two different things here. So the salt truck, that was in the current year's budget, and to replace our 2009 current vehicle. So talking about a vehicle that's given the town 16 years worth of service, and in terms of that capital management you're talking about, I think we're showing that. The trackless is a couple of things. It's understanding how important the one that we have is to us, and trying to make our equipment fleet resilient. And if something happened to the one, like in the conditions we've had the past few weeks here, our town wouldn't be fit to walk around. And I'm just being completely honest about that, between the ploughing and the salting that it offers. So having that one wouldn't be replacing the one we have, it would be supporting it. It gives us the opportunity to split that load as well, because at the moment, one person is carrying that load. And I think we talked about this last time, and he puts in an extraordinary effort, but we have to, again, making our team more resilient is something that's in the best interests of our organisation, and giving other people the opportunity to operate, and helping to share that load is something I think that helps our team, round out our team. So I believe we are, with the salt truck, we have been trying to do that capital asset planning. The trackless, we're just, we've identified a need to make our team stronger, because we understand how critical that piece of equipment is.
I just wanted to clarify that I appreciate and the need for both of those pieces of critical equipment, and I think that the ask is completely justified. I am just somewhat concerned about the assuming of debt with those two large ticket items in a single year, and the other debt that we're showing on this budget brings us to a total debt financing of capital this year of over $1 million, and I don't know what that does or what the impact might be on our debt ratio.
So our debt ratio right now, that doesn't include the wastewater treatment plant, is probably running around 5%, and 15 is what you're allowed to carry in the province of Nova Scotia. When we look at the borrowings for a truck that size, we would be looking between 12 and 15 years to finance. And we get very good rates from the province, like where it's kind of a specialty rate that you wouldn't be able to get through banks. So we are very mindful. We try to ensure that, I know Tyson and Lisa have been wonderful about trying to ensure that we have projections of when they feel that their vehicle fleets need to be replaced, so that we can start to look and see what we, what we have on the books now and when will be paid off and when they need new, so that we're planning all the time for replacements such as that, so that we don't make people worry.
And through you, Chair, just within clarification between the fire department and this, fire departments and those vehicles can only be licensed, I think, up to 25 years. So like they have no choice but to be reissued. And within that longevity of asset management, it's almost a set cycle with those, because they won't reissue like on the locks and on basically all the internal components of a fire truck. So even though it could be in still good shape, it comes down to actually licensing those. So they know on a pretty regular basis. And I've been very impressed with how staff have been trying to asset manage these vehicles and the amount that's gone in for maintenance. And that's why we're bringing like this particular truck forward, and why it's been in the budget is it's starting to become a maintenance issue and a maintenance cost where it's exceeding a value of asset. And don't get me wrong, like 15 years is a pretty good span to get, but we always try to, again, 20 to 25 years out of vehicles if possible. But it really comes down to balancing how much we have to maintain the vehicle and is it worth it at that point. And that's the threshold we're at.
Thanks very much for the explanations. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Babineau.
Actually, just piggybacking off of the deputy mayor, what do we do with the 09 truck? Do we keep it? Like if this gets approved? Or do we sell it or?
Through the chair, I think there's a good chance it would be made surplus and put up for sale. That was what happened with the 02 truck when we got our long-awaited 2025 truck last year to replace the 02. So I imagine that's what we would look at.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Daphne.
Tyson, humor me, please. Victoria to Green, the sidewalk renewal. Could we break that up and just do Hall to BMR and then do the other side when the Tannery Road thing is done?
Through the chair, that would be an option we could consider if we had funding secured and sort of had a firm timeline on when Tannery Road was going to happen, and spending a lot of money to put in a sidewalk and then rip it out and replace it. I agree, that doesn't make sense. But sometimes there's a value in what we would get and the amount of use, just with that location, the amount of foot traffic that's on it, that sidewalk's interesting. We'll say it's a little in and out and different surfaces, and in terms of accessibility, it's not ideal either. So we could weigh that up for sure.
Your crystal ball's not really clear, or it's cloudy. Is that what you're saying? Thanks.
And I guess if Tannery Road does happen, which hopefully it does with funding, I tend to agree with your assumption, and we both guess it could be wrong, but I would think the biggest issue would start at the harbor and work inwards. So according to the way we have it budgeted, it's probably 31 before we get to the sidewalk we're talking about, because that would be the last part of the project, because we'll probably work from Tannery Road by the harbor in, I would think, because I think that's where most of the water is coming from.
So through the chair, the section from the that goes under that deck from the front harbour back about, we'll call it 50 meters. Is relatively new. Once it turns and straightens up sort of behind the properties along Tannery Road, sort of opposite Abco, that's where we're into the vintage material. So it would be from there onwards, I think, we would start.
That's nice, and vintage is a great word. Anybody else have any questions about the capital budget? I guess my only point is I can't make a motion, and I can't make a motion to change things, so I would I'm not in favor of passing the $70,000 recreation master plan at this time. And quite frankly, and I love the academy, but until we find out if we're getting funding or not for the roof, I really don't support spending $10,000 at this point to prepare a outdoor bathroom facility at the academy, just because we're not sure what the building and things. So those are really the only two areas that I have concern about on the capital budget. The other one was the two vehicles. The problem with this is it's sort of in reverse. We don't know if we're approving a second bylaw officer. So if we knew that for sure, then that other vehicle would make perfect sense. But in 2 months from now, if our crystal ball decides not to hire a second bylaw officer, then we have a second car that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I know we have to do it this way, but does concern me a bit because we haven't agreed whether we were going to hire a second bylaw officer or not. So I guess that's just my only concern.
Through you, Chair. So just on the vehicle, if you want to look at it from the standpoint of it's in the budget, if it's not an allocation of a position, then it won't be spent and would still be a zero on the budget for next year, would have no effect beyond that in the capital. So that money would still sit there, if I'm not mistaken, within finance, correct? So it would just sit there as a $0 line item in the end.
Okay, yeah, so if we don't hire, then we don't buy it. Okay. Yep. So those are my suggestions, but we do need a recommendation from somebody, and either with those changes or without, I'm just giving my 2 cents worth of how I'm going to go if certain things are left in.
Am I getting it that you want to link the two? You want to have it with a side amendment or something?
No, you could just pass the budget taking out the recreation master plan and the washroom thing, or you do them separate. You could make a motion taking out one of the two, both of them, or none of them, quite frankly, and I can vote however I want to vote, and off we go. Or I'm just, I guess, making my opinion clear, but I can't do it in a motion because I'm not allowed, so.
Yeah. You want to leave it with her?
Well, I was just thinking out loud that perhaps it would be easier just to make a separate motions on particular items if we want to make adjustments. And then it's clear and doesn't get too convoluted when we're trying to really understand what we're talking about. And I put out for food for thought with respect to, I don't disagree with the 10,000 for the washroom at the academy because we have such a significant capital expenditure looming with the roof repair. It's kind of and that we just don't want to throw an extra 10,000 in that direction necessarily. And I was just wondering if there's sort of a threshold. I know that we've applied for more funding. I know that we're hoping the bids won't come in as high as they had before. We're hopeful that, the Academy Foundation may have capacity to, and provide more funding. So all of those things are also unclear. And so I'm just wondering if there's a sort of a threshold, at which people would be comfortable with assisting with that project, or if it's just simpler to take it out of the mix at this point. So I'm just throwing that out for discussion before suggesting a motion with respect to it.
I say this every once in a while, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. I think we really need to dialogue with the buses, the bus tours, and get them to stop at the public washroom before they go to the academy. I think that would go a long way in resolving some of that issue, but we do have to be concerned about the library. That does not want people generally from the public coming in and using the washroom. So it's going to become, it's a challenge for us as a community, but I think we can, if we write strong letters to the bus tour companies or to any of the tour companies that seem to think that you go to the academy first, let everybody go in and use the washroom, and then you do the tour. That's where I'm coming from with that.
Anybody else? Councilor Daphne?
The more people speak, the more my mind starts looking at other stuff. The truck for the rec department. I need to be convinced. If we're not sure, I understand, I know what we maintain now. But if we're unsure where we're really headed, do we buy something this year? Like,
It's a replacement.
like Christy, what do you feel? Like, I don't know.
So through the chair, so currently with the things we have, our assets like the trails, like the staff are expected to enter the trail, take tools, and also up at the academy, we currently mow a section of the academy that requires a piece of machine to go up there to do the mowing that technically shouldn't be used as much on the road. It should be taken up there safely. Often when they're doing projects to repair the playgrounds in our parks, they have to pick up materials from BMR, bumper to bumper, and unfortunately, we do not have a way. So there was a van that is no longer to be inspected and cannot be used. We do have to rely on Public Works, but their vehicles are being used all day. And then there's always the issue of using personal vehicles for picking up supplies. Currently, one of the things is salt for our buildings. We are not able to go pick up our salt, again, relying on Public Works all the time, and they are fantastic and helpful, but it is still taxing on things like that. We have to pick up supplies in Bridgewater as well. And I use my personal vehicle right now because we don't have a way of getting around. So this mostly the parks and the playgrounds, the trails, the academy. And then unfortunately, we will get, complaints of things not being properly maintained because we're not able to carry all the equipment to the various locations in the town. So perhaps we could consider no longer mowing the academy or something like that to reduce the need if there's not going to be a vehicle. But those are the things that we're currently doing. So if we're going to look at, expanding services and things like that, then definitely there will need to be a truck. But right now it is definitely impacting what we're able to do. Does that help, Deb?
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so we still need someone to make a motion of some sort, so.
I just before we move into that phase again, I agree with the as I mentioned earlier on in the meeting, that I think it is a bit premature for a rec master plan, and that there are other projects, noted further down the road that could be accommodated sooner. And the one that I again personally feel is really important to get started is the Back Harbor Trail accessibility project. So it currently isn't accessible as a trail system right now because there are stairs there, which can't be used easily by cyclists or by parents with strollers or young children with bikes. So I note that for the upcoming year, 27, 28, there's a $20,000 amount noted, which I believe would be for planning for that, making some sort of design to help to enable that to happen. I think that's a project that's ripe for grant opportunities for accessibility and just for connectivity with the rest of the trail system. So I would actually suggest perhaps swapping those out and putting the $20,000 in for moving that project ahead while moving the rec master plan idea to a coming year. So again, food for thought for my colleagues, which I'd be happy to put into a motion if there seems to be any kind of uptake for that.
Okay. Counselor Babineau?
I would have interest in swapping those out. Yeah, that would be amenable to me.
Okay, so why don't we make that a motion and get the ball rolling then?
Okay, I would move that we remove the rec master plan from this year for the capital budget year of 26-27 and replace it with the $20,000 for the Back Harbor Maple Street stairway removal and accessibility improvements. So swapping those out.
Who moves? Is there a seconder? Counselor Strong, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. Now, on to the next motion, somebody. Well, it's either the budget or you can remove the gravel pad if you want. You can do, it's really up to you guys. It's
I'll move that we amend the 26-27 town capital budget to remove the gravel pad preparation for the academy washroom facilities.
so moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Strong. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. So now we're basically on to, you can make another motion to remove something else if you'd like. That's how we're doing it individually. Or you can make a motion to approve the budget that's presented minus the things that we, okay, for the final number.
Based on if there's any.
Yep, okay. So is there any other motions before Kathleen gives us the final number on anything anybody else wants to remove or add?
Wasn't there
Gotcha.
discussion about the bylaw vehicle? Or are we just adding a note?
I think if we approve this, it's in the budget, but if we don't hire the officer,
So it's
we
the,
don't buy, just a notation next to it.
good.
So what is the total amount, you know? $3,815,000. So we knocked 60,000 off. So someone prepared to make the motion as presented, only with the different number. Moved by Counselor Fullerton, seconded by Counselor Babineau. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. There's nothing else on the agenda, so a motion for adjournment is in order. Moved by Counselor Fullerton. Thank you very much.